Welcome, and this is Fred Castañeda, your host for The Struggling Entrepreneur at www.strugglingentrepreneur.com. We bring you this very short video cast about the iPad from Apple on day 1, April 3rd, and following for 60 days, a project that's called Project iPad Day 1. It's going to be a review to see from the entrepreneur's point of view, that is from the point of view of the small business owner and the startup, of whether or not this really is a real business tool and can be utilized in not only managing but also supporting your business, helping you to achieve business goals, or whether or not it's just an overpriced toy. Now, Project iPad Day 1 is a 60-day test with the objective being that we're going to evaluate, we're going to test, we're going to get feedback, and we're going to get reviews of the first iPad during the 60-day time frame. And yes, we did go out and purchase it. And it's going to be, again, from the perspective not of the what is called the Apple fanboy. That's the term that's used for people who love Apple, come rain or shine, good or bad, etc., just because they like the company and the devices that they bring out there and will buy them sight unseen. But from the perspective of the small business owner, the startup firm, the entrepreneur. And in order to do that, we're going to have some deliverables available for you at the end of the project and throughout the project. Summary of the feedback, summary of the results of the tests, putting it through the rigors, and recommendations for the entrepreneur of whether or not this is a business tool and in what environments it can be used as a business tool. We'll also have interviews with both perspectives, the opinions on day 1, because some people think it's going to be a tool, going to be a toy, and then the reality at the end of the project and throughout the 60 days that we're going to be testing it. Now, all these deliverables are going to be delivered to you via podcast episodes on a free podcast. It's a podcast that's called The Struggling Entrepreneur at www.strugglingentrepreneur.com. It's free. There is no charge. And what we're doing is we're going to have a 60-day test that starts day 1, April 3rd. What we did was we bought an iPad on day 1 at the Apple Store, and we included, in addition to the testing, the evaluation, the feedback, the recommendations, we included what is called a journey. That is a step-by-step chronology. Think of it this way, as in the sports world, the sports announcer says it's a play-by-play analogy. Well, this is a step-by-step chronology of the experience of going to pick up a pre-ordered 64-gig iPad. In order to do this, we broke it up into 9 what we called installment episodes delivered to you. And it takes account of everything from standing in line to entering the store to purchasing the iPad, getting the accessories, and installing both the free and the fee-based applications. Then we also had some reflections on the experience from the point of view of entrepreneurs. We also took some interviews of those people who were standing in line. So before, during, and after the time that we got our iPad, we interviewed other people who were standing in line waiting to buy their iPad on day 1. Some of them saw it as a business tool. Others saw it as merely a toy, not for business. And what was interesting is we actually had some who were going to be creating custom-designed applications for industry so that they can use the iPad in a mobile environment. We'll talk about that in just a second. So the question that we're trying to answer is the iPad from Apple just an overpriced toy, or can it really be used as a business tool that's useful to the entrepreneur, small business owner, and the startup firm? Well, we interviewed Thomas Umstadt, who is himself an entrepreneur. He supports writers and authors. He's also himself a writer, a web strategist, social media specialist, etc. And he believes it can be a valued tool. By the way, the reason why he got it so early, as you'll hear in his episode interview, is that he supports authors, writers, etc. in a web location that's called authortechtips.com. And how else is he going to deliver recommendations for the authors and writers of the iPad unless he's got one and becomes part of what is called the bleeding edge, an early adopter? Then we went and got some interviews from people in the private sector who were software developers and also who were working in the energy area, in energy management, and unfortunately they saw it as a toy, and they give you the reasons why they saw it as a toy, with maybe some hopeful aspirations that it could do a few things. Then we went to Richard Ehrlich. He happens to be a software developer that sees a future for the iPad as a mobile device in giving productivity to the health industry by providing support for the medical professionals in little small web-based applications in order to digitize and help the process along in healthcare. And so Richard Ehrlich thinks that this will be a useful tool, especially for disadvantaged veterans in the health industry. And so the Project iPad Day 1 begins with these episodes. Episode 119 has already been published. It's an overview of the project, about a 4-minute overview. Episode 119A is the interview with Thomas Umstadt, where he sees it as a business tool. Episode 119B is an interview with Bill Ott and Greg Palmer. They see it merely as a toy. And remember, there's maybe a glimpse of a hopeful application, maybe as a remote desktop, where it can sneak into a business environment. And in episode 119D as in Delta is an interview with Richard Ehrlich. Now, the purpose and the design of what he's planning to do as a software developer for the iPad is really a winning application. He wants it as a mobile platform when he designs his custom application in the medical field. This is something you definitely want to listen to. Episode 119C is the description of the journey to buy the iPad on day 1. That is the play-by-play, or as they say in sports, or the step-by-step process and experience in 9 installment episodes, usually 2 to 4 minutes each, that describe the experience from the point of view of the entrepreneur of buying the iPad. And everything in these 9 includes the introduction to the journey, as you'll see in installment episode 1, confirming the reservation while standing in line, installment episode number 2, talking to a disabled veteran and getting his feedback when he sees it as a toy because he's going to dabble in it. Installment episode number 3, standing in line and planning for accessories. Installment episode number 4, my observations of looking at the flow control in line and waiting to get to the store, the good, the bad, and the ugly of all of these. Installment episode number 5, getting into the store, picking up the iPad, and then going and getting the accessories. Installment number 6, the payment transaction, which required me still more waiting. Installment episode number 7, reflections of the experience while the time I was waiting, that is, during the wait for payment, my reflections of the experience so far. And episode number 8, that is installment episode number 8, testing the system and installing the applications. That is, testing it to make sure it's not defective, because there were defective iPads that were delivered on day 1. Getting my email set up, getting the free applications like iBooks, and then getting some fee-based applications from the App Store, all helped by an Apple employee in the store for 40 minutes when I was there. And then installment episode number 9, my exiting the store, final reflections of the experience, and a summary of the journey. These are in episode 119C. You can click on the link for all of these, each one individually, or just pick the ones that suit you. They're only 2 to 4 minutes each one. So Project iPad Day 1 is really a 60-day test, and in addition to this content which is being delivered in these few days and is already up on The Struggling Entrepreneur, we're going to have additional content. As we go along, we'll be giving you the results of the applications for the small business environment that we find and we test. We'll be giving you the results and the evaluation of the test, putting it through the rigors, especially in a mobile environment for a mobile entrepreneur. And then we'll also incorporate feedback from other reviewers and testers as they give us that information. So we're going to have a summary of the project at the end of the 60 days. As we said before, we'll be going through and giving you periodic updates with the tests, evaluations, feedback, and results that we find so far. You can find these all at the free podcast of www.strugglingentrepreneur.com. And remember, the purpose of this is to inform the entrepreneurs, inform the small business community, because we want to support them, and inform the startup owners. Why? Because they need to understand that if in the future they see a device, software, or a product from Apple that's going to help them create a competitive differential advantage and put them ahead and support their business objectives and their business results, well, they have to know what experience is going to be included, what they're going to have to go through when they buy a product surrounded with all the marketing hype, the lines, and everything else that they'll see in this experience. And they can decide whether they want to wait and sacrifice that competitive differential advantage time frame, or whether they can go and pick it up. But they need to be aware of this particular experience, because when they go there and they are not aware of it, it's a very frustrating and time-wasting type of experience that can easily turn into wasted time, effort, and resource for the entrepreneur. So there you have it. A review of the iPad from Apple to find out if it is a toy or a business tool. This Project iPad Day 1 is going to incorporate all the results, Please follow along with us. Go to www.strugglingentrepreneur.com. If you want to, you'll see a one-click iTunes button. Go ahead and click on that. Subscribe to the podcast. It's free, and you'll get every episode downloaded automatically to your iTunes application the moment that it's released. Please, we encourage you to do this. We look for you to take this and consume it as an entrepreneur from the perspective of the small business owner, and not from any hype, not from any influence marketing tactics. Look at it as either a tool to help your business get ahead, help your business get the results, or support the management of your business. Or maybe look at it and judge for yourself whether it's a toy or whether it can help your business. This is Fred Castaneda of thestrugglingentrepreneur.com, wishing you a happy journey as you follow along with us in this particular project iPad Day 1, the 60-day review, and we look forward to delivering this value for you as part of the entrepreneur and small business community.